All right, good morning, goddammit. Piss and vinegar day 150, the big 150. Accessories day, trap neck, traps, trap neck, calves, abs. Hate this day, it's too darn long, but it has to be done. It's just as important, if not more important than other days because the traps and neck are so very important. Calves, meh. I mean, my calf genetics suck so bad anyway, I'll never have them, but it's more about the traps and neck. They're just so important. And then the abs, of course, too, very important too. So yeah, today I want to kind of talk about genetics. I want to talk about, the surface level of genetics that we always see, just generally like we think you either have your genetics to get big or you don't, or you have bad genetics. But I want to kind of talk about the nuances and we're not all created equal, but some of us have better genetic components that assist bodybuilding than others. Some things are more important than other things, like low myostatin would be the key, right? Low myostatin rules over everything. If you have West African descent genetics, you're going to have low myostatin and you're going to just build muscle way easier than everyone else, regardless of testosterone, work ethic, etc. But there are many genetic components I kind of want to just talk about throughout this workout. Just like little nuances that I just kind of want to talk about that stuff today because it might give some of you guys some solace in your medium, good or bad genetics and just kind of perspective to think upon that will make you feel better. These earphones aren't fucking loud enough. Oh, fuck. Note to the editor, me, but you watching after this, put a disclaimer, make a template disclaimer in the editing program to remind for the fucking power shrugs. All right, I'm giving these silly fucking hook grips another go just for this specific exercise because I vaguely remember this being okay. Just want to experiment a little bit. All right, my first point with genetics is fake media genetics. So, like anyone, I'm influenced by social media and I see people on social media and think, wow, I must have bad genetics because you see all these people with great physiques, but you gotta understand people flaunting things are flaunting it for a reason. It's not because they have, average genetics. It's because they probably have good genetics. And then you take away from even good genetics. Some people have average genetics. A lot of people have average genetics, but you see them in the best possible lighting or pose for them. Like for example, if I, in these current lighting conditions that are pretty good, do a front double bicep, I look like I have good genetics. But then if I I don't know, what's another pose? So from this side angle, my arms look huge or big. if I flex my arm like this from a straight angle, they look like very mediocre, if not small. So it's like, it can just be as simple as an angle. I personally look a lot bigger from the side than I do from the front, for numerous reasons. But if all you ever see is my best poses flaunting, which I try not to do too much, you'll think I have good genetics. When in reality, if you saw me flat on with my fucking calves out, you'd be like, that guy has bad genetics. So it can literally just be a matter of an angle, a piece of lighting. And these people who are making money off this, their whole fucking income's coming off that fact that they look good. They're never gonna show you their shitty fucking angles. And you might see it sometimes in a video, but not even the people that you think have good genetics necessarily have good genetics. And then there's so many other nuances that come into, and I'll get to that in a second, but that's the first thing, is essentially understanding that, like, you probably, very likely, have average genetics because you're, on average, most likely to be average. And there are some areas you might have bad genetics, and there might be some areas you have good genetics. In my case, mostly pretty mid, and then a few decently bad things like my calves and my traps, and certain angles, again, from certain areas, they look like I have bad genetics. Straight on, not so good. On the side, I look pretty fucking good. So it's normally a mix of good, bad, and medium. The best place to really be is everything's good, but some guys, will have everything's average, and they think that's they think that's average genetics or bad genetics. But if everything's actually average, you're kind of winning. You're actually probably, I would consider that good genetics in the sense that if everything's average, at a certain point, if you just train all these average things up, they're going to be great eventually. So really, like, if you're just the average dude, that's almost as good as it gets, other than then being the dude that has everything good. But a lot of the times, people that have good genetics only have a few things that are exceptional. And then you get the Ronnie Colemans and the Dorian Yates and stuff who have everything. They have everything in place. But even then, Dorian Yates, had certain areas that he just couldn't quite get as big as the other things that would probably consider good genetics on everyone else. But, even for bodybuilding standards. But I digress. The point is, likelihood is you are average. And it's just going to take time before you look exceptional. And when you do look exceptional, people will think you have good genetics. Oh, fuck's sake. These things aren't that great. Ooh, that's gonna slip off. Ooh. Oh, fuck. You fucking cunty plates. I'm just gonna rest because fuck that up. I think I basically took it to failure, but it's a principle thing. I couldn't give it every single ounce because I fucked it up. So out of principle, I'm just gonna reset. What was I saying? Yeah, don't dictate your genetics based off your weak points. And again, it's like, what's the standard, right? How many, okay, I got 3 bad points, 5 good points, 3 mid points. What's the fucking equation? Like, who gives a shit? Just fucking, I don't know, it's hard to explain. And I fall under this trap all the time too. I'm always thinking, fuck my genetics, dude. Sucks, my chest. I see dudes with big chests and go, fuck, I don't have that. Or, traps, and we all want what we don't have. That's the real essence of this, is you don't have something and it's just fucking sucks, but like, you can only do your best. And insertions are everything, right? Like, it's not necessarily that my chest is small. It just doesn't insert very well. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have that sticking out thing. Like, I could get my pecs as big as as physically as they could get, as big as my genetics could allow them, and I will one day. I could take steroids and get them as big as the steroids would allow me, but they'll never be great because of the insertions. That's just how it is. So, this kind of ties into my next point. What do you have? So, You might be like, this one is the huge one that a lot of people don't understand is for you skinny guys out there who are like, man, fuck, my genetics suck, I'm so skinny. All right, cool. You can fix that though. You can get big. It'd be harder because of fucking fast metabolism and maybe high myostatin and low test, whatever the fuck it is. Like you're super ectomorphic. But when you look in the mirror, do you have sick insertions? Because I can see this with a trained eye, I can see a skinny guy and go, if he lifted weights in 10 years of just consistently training, he would look fucking excellent because these insertions are sick. His genetics suck in the sense that he's skinny as shit. Like for me, for example, I'm a heavy set guy even when I don't lift weights. Like when I have, as a teenager or just as an adult periods of time where I didn't lift weights, I lost all my muscle. I was still a pretty big person. Like I was already, I held a lot of muscle, but like the insertions fucking suck. So like you could see someone like me and go, yeah, he could get big, but he'll never look that good because the insertions are just not there. I don't have insertions. That's numero uno. It's just straight up insertions because yeah, it's cool if you can get big really quickly. But if you get huge and the insertions are absolutely awful, which some people unfortunately are, then it just doesn't look that great, right? The guy who has better insertions, who's say 10, 20% smaller, will still look bigger than the guy who's 20% bigger just based off the fact that there's an illusionary aspect to it. If his shoulders are wider, his hips are smaller, his pecs are more sculpted, his shoulders insert better, his bicep peaks insert better, all these different things, he's just gonna look bigger. This is a great, African Americans and just West Africans in general, a good example of this. Yeah, they can get bigger quicker, but on a whole, the endpoint's very similar between, Caucasians and Africans. Maybe Africans can get slightly more muscular, but what really distinguishes it is insertions and lighting. Because at the end of the day, Africans have better muscular insertions than white guys on average. It's just, you can just see it. They have a leaner, more dense, more aesthetic look to their muscular insertions. I don't know what exactly that is, but it's just a fact. So a lot of times people think, oh, black guys are bigger than white guys, for example. It's not really true. It's just that they have vastly better insertions. It looks that way, and white guys not as much. It's very seldom does a white guy have a bunch of excellent insertions. So, that's a good example is insertions being really powerful is you can get the same size white guy and same size average black guy. Black guy's still gonna look bigger just because his insertions are better. Then because his skin tone is darker, he cuts light even better. So he's now accentuating these insertions with his darker skin. So then the lighting comes in, which ties back to the social media. Like there's so many things. You have to observe it as logically as you can. And if you truly do undeniably have terrible genetics because you have shit insertions and you're skinny and you have a hard time bulking up, all these things, then that's very unfortunate. But for the average person, that is just simply not the case. They very likely at least have a few things going for them, or they have good genetics and they just fucking suck at training. All right, set 2, just because that first one was kind of a failure. Just gonna do a rest pause. Oh, shit. You know, another thing with genetics is, you know, I say I have a bad pair of pecs when it comes to genetics, and I genuinely think that's just going to be the case. But there isn't, I mean, for example, the delts, right? My shoulders, 3 years ago, if I was talking about this, I would also lump the shoulders in that. I would say the shoulders, bad genetics. But then, you know, when it came to switching from volume to high intensity, it became very apparent that the shoulders weren't a bad genetics. I didn't have bad genetics. It was just that the training wasn't optimal for my shoulders. And I've talked about this at length in other videos. There's one specifically about my delts. Can't remember what I called it, but basically look up, you know, something to do with shoulders if you're interested in seeing how I grew my delts from incredibly lackluster to very much what I would consider one of my strong points now in certain line of conditions. Again, there's a lot to it, right? But the point is, what I thought was a bad genetic point actually wasn't. It was average, if not a little bit above average, at least in retrospect to the rest of my body parts. I don't think anything on me is necessarily genetically gifted at all. But, so it's a spectrum. But by just simply getting the training correct for me specifically, I unlocked my genetic potential with my delts. Now, very well could be that right now there is something that I'm not doing for my pecs that would unlock that. And the pecs would fucking blow up and I'd be like, oh shit, the chest genetics aren't actually bad. And all of a sudden, it could be a totally different video in 2 years from now when I unlock whatever that is. But that's another thing is like, yeah, you might have genetics for certain things or genetics in general, but if you're eating like shit, you're not sleeping like right, you're not training correctly, you'll never realize those genetics. Unless you're incredibly genetically gifted, then like that's the difference, right? If you're genetically gifted for real, you can do whatever the fuck you want to do, you'll grow. But for those of us who aren't, and especially if it's a genetic weak point, like my chest very likely is, I very much need to find something that unlocks that, right? So that's another thing. You might haven't unlocked the thing required yet to get what is a genetic weak spot to just the norm or potentially above the norm. My shoulders are above the norm in retrospect to the rest of my physique now. So that's another point with genetics is you might be coping, might not be even genetics, might just be you doing something wrong. And as I was alluding to earlier in the video, another example of unlocking things was the neck, right? So the neck was numerous facets. One is big wide head, big wide chin and jaw and hairs wide and all this shit. So contrasting my neck to my head made my neck look small. Again, my neck's 18 inches, it's not small, especially now. And it looks pretty all right now. And part of that was then, you know, it was uphill battle because wide head. So then also I had to unlock something once again, in high intensity training. Switching to one neck session once a week with utmost of intensity, bam, my neck goes from 16 inches to 18 inches. Now 16 for most is considerably looks like a wide neck because most people don't have a fucking super fucking huge head like I do. So for me, it was, all right, I need an extra like 2 inches to get it in line with the jaw, yeah? Well, that was unlocking something, high intensity training. Now, and then like, man, there's so many facets. Big head, right? That fucks everything up. Shoulders don't look as wide, neck looks smaller, traps, just the whole physique alone looks smaller because the head, which is not a muscle, you don't really want it to be that big. Like Korean bodybuilders are notorious for photoshopping their head smaller because it's like a cultural thing in Korea to have a smaller head or whatever. And they have very big heads because they're like Mongol descent. Big warrior skull motherfuckers. Put HGH in there, it gets even worse. But you see like these photoshops, these Korean bodybuilders with this small head, it makes a fucking difference. They look way wider in the shoulders. So even something as benign as a big head is disadvantageous when it comes to bodybuilding. So yeah, it can be very sneaky and you might not even know what it is that's making you look a little bit less aesthetic. And it'll be something totally out of your control, like your fucking head size, or something in your control, like my hair. I got really long hair. So the contrasting to the rest of my body, it makes my body look smaller. Whereas when I've shaved my head before, it made me instantly look that much bigger. It made my neck bigger, traps bigger, etc. That's something within my control. I just don't do it because I don't give a fuck. I like my long hair. So like, just be analytical and understand what is it that's making me seem like I have bad genetics when in reality I probably have medium genetics, if not good genetics. Oh man. Woo. Try to do one set of neck curls like that once a week and try not to get a huge fucking neck. Like, it's not comparable to the shit that I used to do, man. 4 sets of 10 bullshit, 4 sets of 12, 20 volume nonsense with no intensity or good form or intentions or negatives. The negatives so important. Try that. Slow negs, some drop sets beyond failure, force reps, force negatives and shit with your hand to assist. Your neck's gonna fucking blow up for sure. So, there we go. Unlocked, key unlocked to see otherwise what I thought was bad genetics to be very much average, perhaps even good. 18-inch neck for a natural is not that bad. Give it another 3 years, 20, 21. Where am I gonna go? Fuck, I hate this exercise. Oh, fucking getting choked out. Man, there's so many things that you can consider. Obviously, there's rankings to what's the best genetic things to have. But like, for example, let's say you have genetic predisposition to have just an indomitable will, right? Which is a very fucking powerful thing to have. Indomitable will gets you far in life. Genetics are not. So let's say you have an indomitable will. And you can just stick out hard training for a much longer time than, say, the guy that has no myostatin or very high testosterone or whatever it is. But that dude does have like the shittiest willpower ever and he just doesn't fucking train. How often do you see a guy who has the best fucking genetics? They're already jacked, they're already shredded up, they already have sick insertions, etc., bone structures there, blah, blah, blah. But they're just a lazy piece of shit. Whereas you might have average or below average genetics, but in the long term, you'll be bigger than that guy, just simply on the fact that you have indomitable will. Now, obviously, best to have both, but if you don't, then so be it. At least you have something. Indomitable will is probably the most important one, right? At the end of the day, if you don't have the will to do something, regardless of your genetics, you'll never do it. So you won't be able to see what your genetics are worth, right? So indomitable will, pain tolerance, you might be able to train to failure better than others. I have a very good pain tolerance, so I can withstand training to failure really easy. It's not, I never understood why Dorian Yates and Mike Menser and stuff always said that, the reason people don't do HIIT is because it's hard. It's not fucking hard, or at least it isn't for me, because it's just not, it's easy for me to compartmentalize a Band-Aid that I rip off versus a Band-Aid that I slowly pull off in volume. It's just easy for me to go through pain, right? So my pain tolerance is pretty good. I can push through pain much easier. So that's great for adhering to high intensity, which is the best way of training. Whereas people with bad pain tolerance can't push for the potential neurological adaptations or physical muscular adaptations that they need because it's just their willpower and pain tolerance sucks. So it could be, there's so many things. A guy could have excellent genetics, but he never creates the stimulus required to grow because his fucking pain tolerance sucks. Or he's dumb. Maybe you have some ignorant idiot whose brain doesn't function correctly, has excellent genetics to build muscle, but because he's so fucking dumb, he can never figure out how to train. Like there's, this is an exaggeration perhaps, but this is, you gotta take these all into consideration. See the things you at least have. And they very well might be superior to the surface level things like, as I said, high testosterone, low myostatin. Big one nowadays, and it's I think people realize how fucking prevalent it is steroids, man. Like nowadays, just knowing the statistics of how many people are on steroids, just in Australia alone. Australia, we have 24 million people every year. There are 1 million of those on steroids. Now, some of them might be burn victims or something, but I'd say a vast majority of that, let's say 500,000 of them are on steroids. Well, that just infers that every time I see a dude who's fucking jacked, there's a good chance he's just on steroids. Like, it's not to say that you can't get jacked without steroids, but if you're walking around and you see a jacked guy, like there's a good chance that dude's just on gear. Like it takes a long time, and there's not as many people that you think lift weights as they do. So, like the amount of fake naturals out there, or just the amount of people, not even talking about their natural status, just people you see in the street and you go, wow, like, why is there so many jacked people? Well, it's because there's a fucking shit ton of steroid users around the globe, especially if you're in the West. So, and then, man, the amount of people who take steroids and don't even look like they're on steroids, that's the thing. Like you see a jacked guy in public, you think, that's a naturally attainable physique. Yeah, it is. It's very likely on steroids just because of what percentage of gym goers are on it. I think it's like 60% of Australian gym goers or something, maybe even higher than that, are on or have been on steroids. So it's like, you see a jack dude and it's like, man, what would that guy look like without that? You know what I mean? He might look even shittier. And then when you see a guy who's really big, because it's not super soldier serum, this shit. Like, yeah, steroids make someone bigger, but a lot of times it just makes people look like a high elite level natural, but they've just done it with gear and 2 years or whatever. So that's another thing. Fuck, a lot of people on steroids. So you might think, wow, like I have bad genetics because everyone around me is so much bigger at the gym or whatever. Well, there's a good chance they might be on gear. And this is not like a cope. It sounds like cope to be like, well, you're just blaming the steroids and everything. No, yes, actually, you know what I am, because so many fucking people are on them. People don't realize how many. In England, it's like, I think, you guys, in England, it's like a population of 45 million or something. It's very comparable. It's like, 1 million people a year, if not more, are on that shit. fucking ripping my hair out. Ah, shit. Ah. Woo. Like in Australia, right? Let's say, I couldn't imagine more than, say, 2 million people go to the gym in Australia on a daily basis, or just in a yearly basis, right? Just based off how poorly gym businesses go. If 2 million people, let's just say 2 million people go to the gym in Australia. I don't know what the statistics are. I could probably, maybe I'll refer this tomorrow when I look it up. But let's just say 2 million, based as being a PT and knowing what percentage people go to gym. If then 1 million people are on steroids, or let's just be conservative and say 500,000, that means 25% of people at the fucking gym are on steroids. So, like, of course you're going to think you have bad genetics if everybody in your local gym, or a very big percentage of the dudes in there, are on gear, you know what I mean? And this goes for women too. Like, fuck, dude, even more deceptively so, because Anavar is such a popular drug nowadays. You see these women on Instagram who, you know, you just think they have good genetics, because you'd never think that these still feminine looking women would be on steroids, but Anavar doesn't make you, has a very low androgenic profile. So like women, these Anavar queens, right, or these Anavar chicks, it's like, that would only just then make the women feeling, and women have even more body image issues than men. So like, it's twofold. It's not necessarily, you know, people have better genetics than you in the gym. It could very well just be that there's a very, very big majority, or I mean, maybe not majority, but a very good percentage of people on it, including women. So any women listening, if you're looking at these chicks in the gym who are fucking deadlifting 140 kilos and have like just insane glutes and quads and shit, and you're going, why the fuck don't I look like that? It's because they could very well be on Anavar, because it's very popular. Try not to take this with a grain of salt, because also it's unhealthy just to assume everyone's on the steroids too at the same time, because then it lowers your own expectations. Reach for the stars, land on the moon. So just think, well, these guys are on steroids, but that doesn't mean I can't achieve that. It just means that these people are taking a shorter route. Because again, a lot of people on steroids don't even look like they're necessarily on steroids. They just look like an elite level natural, but they've just gotten there quicker, right? And they won't need as much information or nutritional knowledge or sleep, etc., because people want shit nowadays. And that's why gear is so fucking popular, because we're in Instagram, TikTok, you know, Facebook Reel fucking reality nowadays. So take pride in your natural status. Understand that even if these guys are bigger than you right now, you'll very likely be the same size, if not bigger, as a natural. Just give it the time. Those people are probably going to fall off quick anyway, because you can only take shit for so long. You know, these guys blast. A lot of the times nowadays, you get fucking teenagers on trend. And it's so funny seeing these teenagers. It's not funny because it's sad, but you see these teenagers and it's so indicative, because like they still have the thin necks and small traps that you have as a fucking literal child, but just with the androgenic profile or anabolic profile of steroids. So they have like huge chests and lats and shit, but then they have a baby face and a skinny neck, and it's, dude, that dude's not gonna, that same guy at 18 with the wearing the fucking ski mask and doing sad boy like, this is the same guy that if he didn't find trend, he'd be posting pictures of his like black and white pictures of his fucking rings and his gay like Jesus Christ cross earrings and like his fucking, you know, broccoli haircut, like that kind of phenotype of teenager. In 7 years, when his kidneys and liver are fucking fried from the gear usage at 25, he's gonna quit anyway. So longevity. Yeah, you don't necessarily have the genetics or the gear use or whatever. Like, I'm going on a huge tangent here, but I think this is important perspective for people to hear. That's how I see it. Oh, man, this is becoming unreasonably fucking hard to pick up. Oh, god damn, dude. That is fucking a lot of weight. What's that? 175. All right. And even then it's too light because I gotta do slow reps. runners are wet. I'm not sure these are the shoes for this exercise, man. They don't feel very mobile. But then barefoot hurts too much because it's so much weight bearing down into my toes. Have to wear shoes, eh? I think at the end of the day, genetics aside, patience, right? Varying degrees of genetics, of course, but ultimately, I'm of the firm belief that just about everybody can get big muscles, nice looking muscles, muscles accentuated by insertions, lighting, skin color, etc. Yeah, maybe not. Bone structure, all these things, but you can most definitely get big. For that, some it's going to take longer, and that's just patience, right? But the other things are out of your control. Your bone structure and your insertions are out of your control. You can try to do things to accentuate by making certain muscles bigger and other muscles smaller, etc. But at the end of the day, you know, you will get big. It's just going to take time. And depending on how your muscles insert, that will change how those big muscles look. But if at the end of the day, generally, we're just looking to try to get big and strong, right? And that will happen. Whether you have bad genetics or great genetics, everyone typically gets to about the same size in the end, depending on their bone structure and all the other things included. Like you generally will, if you're 5'11", the guy who has great genetics and you have bad genetics, at the peak of your genetics regardless, you'll probably be about the same size. He might be a little bit bigger, but if you have the same bone structure and everything else included, it's all just going to essentially, at the end of the day, come down to insertions. And there's not much you can do there. Maybe if you go to Thailand and have someone snip your tendons and put them in different places, and yeah, maybe deep massage and stuff, but everyone can get big, or just about everybody can get big. It's more about, the insertions. My favorite example of this, just within myself as of recently, has been comparing. What's his name? Jeffrey Very Schofield. I actually defended him in a video a while back. But me and him have identical arm size. I think, identical. His is 17 inches, mine is 17 inches. And yet, his look fucking way bigger. Like, they'll look unnaturally bigger, hence why people don't think he's a natural. In reality, they're the same fucking size and the same leanliness because, I'm higher in body fat, but my arms stay very, very lean or decently lean. Let's say it's just a slight difference in body fat. Maybe my arms are like 2% higher in body fat, right? Which is giving me that extra quarter of an inch that then gives me this. Point being is arms are very, very similar size, yet his look easily 2 inches bigger because insertions. Also, he doesn't do a video series like I do where you get to see the shittier angles where my arm insertions don't look so good, whereas he's always picking the best angles, which is fair enough to him. He doesn't have a video series like me, and that's just so he doesn't need to pander. He can just have the best, or he can pander rather. So part of that is you get to see only his greatest angles in his videos because he's more of a talking video guy, right? Whereas me, I don't, it doesn't matter. I'm just like walking around doing random shit. My arms are always flexed doing cable rows and pull-ups and shit like that. So you get to see them at rest in bad lighting with their least best angles. And thus, between him having vastly better insertions, better lighting at all times, you would assume that his arms are at least 2 inches bigger and they're genetically far more gifted, which they are, but only in an insertion perspective, not a mass perspective. Everyone can get big, not everyone can look freakishly big because of their insertions. All right, see you guys for more Piss and Vinegar tomorrow. Bye-bye.